Hi, this is the True Crime Grapevine podcast and YouTube channel. This is my first episode, so you know how that goes. I'm not going to tell you to smash that like button and subscribe because you don't know what this is and maybe it's not going to be any good. What I want to do with this podcast, though, is to share with everybody out there in the interweb world with what I'm bothering all my friends and family with daily. So maybe if I get it out this way, I won't bother my family. So I want to just let you know what's been happening in true crime this week. Sadie Mae, I don't know if you can see our little rescue dog down here, will likely be popping in and out to help. So let's unpack what's been happening this week. I am trying to do just a little bit. I have files for everybody, and then what's been happening this week, and I will let you know. One of the things that I noticed is we hear mostly about true crime stories when something has happened in
Can you repeat that line,
phases.
the true crime stories? Because Sadie shook her head.
All right, take two. Maybe we'll have a blooper roll. What I meant to tell
Sorry, I cut you off. You can go.
All right. What this podcast is intended to do is, it's for the intended viewer, if you will. Will probably be for insomniacs who just want somebody to babble on, like a babbling brook, not really listening to what's going on. Hopefully my tone is soothing or at least not annoying so you can fall asleep, which is often what I use podcasts for. And it's for the person who loves true crime but can't really spend hours upon hours watching YouTube videos, looking up stories on the internet, and reading newspaper articles about them. So hopefully I can give you a quick hour-long overview of what's going on in the major cases. I tend to do this by, or what I'm planning to do this by, is telling you the phase of investigation. So you can call me Patti, your Dyslexic Detective. God, that's kind of hard to say, especially if you're dyslexic. I'm just another armchair detective telling you what everyone's been talking about on the True Crime Grapevine. Just like in high school, I'm passing on what's sus, what's the hap. Yeah, I'm still learning my kids' lingo. But, and with that, let me just tell you, so for today's case file, what I have unpacked is what's happened in one of our biggest cases that everybody might, I don't want to say everybody, sorry if you don't know about it. Maybe you've had, I don't know, a coma. Maybe you've been in jail. The Valo Daybell case, also known as the Cult Mom case. We've had some court updates. So they're in the phases, sorry, go back, you're going to have to cut this in.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about not just the who, what, where, when, but I'll be talking about what phase of investigation it is. Because what I've noticed, which I'm sure what you've probably noticed, is during certain phases of the investigation, we get a lot more chitter-chatter, a lot more talk, a lot more actual evidence dumped, through affidavits and indictments. So usually there's, of course, when it comes through, like on the scanner, when people first notice there's a crime. So we have the initial, oh my God, something happened. Lots of information, and sometimes bad information, right? Because just like anything, when it first happens, you get a lot of people talking about it. Don't get all the exact details right. I'm going to be passing whatever seems to be what everybody's talking about. It's all allegedly. It's all just my speculation on what seems to be going on. So I'm not a real journalist. I am not a lawyer. I am a partial PhD in educational psychology, which means I finished all my education work in educational psychology, which is studying cognition, how people think, motivations, It's educational psychology is about typical development. So while I'm not a criminal psychologist, I didn't study abnormal psychology. I studied typical psychology, so I can speak to, wow, that's not normal, which, let's just be honest, most of us notice when something's outside the norm. But I think it does give me a little bit better perspective. So when we notice a crime happening, lots of talk. Then the next big things are when there's, during the investigation, sometimes we don't hear anything more, unfortunately. A crime's committed, it's off the radar. Either it's gone cold or it just doesn't get traction for some reason. There is one source I'm going to be telling you about that does pick up some of those cases, which I really like. So the next big time we tend to hear a lot of chitter chatter on the grapevine is when there is something happening in the case. The investigation is going on. We hear about who's being hauled in to be talked about. We hear about search warrants being given to the people and what's happening there. Indictments, affidavits start coming down. That's when we're getting closer to the next big phase, which is when there's arrest and there's an affidavit. So then we get actual legal talking documents, which is always something that sets off everybody, because then a lot of podcasters and YouTube creators will read those documents out loud, maybe all at once, maybe in segments. So that is always a big time to talk about stuff, part of the phase of the investigation. And then there's the actual pre-trial hearing. So someone is going to trial. You will see a lot of the talking in these case files today. In the big cases will be about pretrial motions, pretrial hearings, stuff that is happening about getting ready to trial. And then, of course, everything blows up when there's the actual trial. And then, concluding the trial, you'd think, oh, so we're done, right? Case closed. Not exactly. Then there's post-trial motions and the sentencing. And then maybe finally we get to punishment, which is when someone has been sentenced and then is in jail. And so that's what we call case closed. To the cases today, we have the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell cult murder. I call it murder and mayhem. It's a very huge case because we have murders, we have frauds. So this is a murder, insurance fraud, conspiracy case. Right now they're being tried together. This is taking place, hopefully I'll have a map somewhere behind me. This is taking place in Idaho. You'll notice there's some states that tends to have a certain type of crimes that occur to it, which I find kind of interesting. So we are in Idaho for this case. While the two people are charged together for the murder of Tylee Ryan and J.G. Vallow, which are Lori Vallow Daybell's children, or excuse me, well they were, that's a horrible thing to say. They are in the pretrial case. It is difficult because she has been deemed incompetent, which in Idaho, they don't have reason but of not guilty by insanity. The state statute took that off the books. So instead, they only have, if you're mentally incompetent, you can't be tried because that means you can't help in your own defense. So Lori Vallow has been deemed incompetent, so her case can't go forward because she can't help in it. One of the hearings that took place this week was about her competency. Now, because it's about mental health, HIPAA's involved, that means we can't really know about it. Those discussions are always sealed. So we don't know exactly what they said, but it was supposed to be over 180 days, which would be March 22nd, I believe. It's not March 22nd, so we don't know if she was found competent and we're moving forward then. We're not sure. That's the scuttlebutt out there. And Chad's lawyer, John Pryor, has filed to sever the case, which means he doesn't want Lori and Chad having their case together, like sitting in the same court, even at different tables, but all together, having people talk about it. He thinks it's too prejudiced. Personally, again, speculation, allegedly, just my conspiracy opinion, really, it's not a conspiracy theory. I don't understand how, even if she's not in the room or he's not in the room, how they don't talk about each other, because they were her kids, but the bodies were found on his land. They were married. His wife died. And I believe they are both charged with that murder too. I don't think it's together with this, but I will check. So what we're doing right now is the court is deciding how this is all going to play out. If Lori's competent, found to be competent, we should know soon. So that is what is happening in Idaho. Maybe I'll do, if anybody cares to hear about this, because these updates are going to be really quick. If you really want to hear about the Lori Vallow case, first of all, and I'm always going to tell you about my sourcing, because I'm just the grapevine. Where did I get it? What was my main squeeze? Well, let me tell you. Lori Hellis is a lawyer, and she does a podcast with Lauren. I don't know if Lauren's last name is Mateus. Her husband, John Mateus, is a criminal psychologist. Hopefully, you will see somewhere behind me their icon for their podcast called Hidden True Crime Podcast. It's also on YouTube, so it's a podcast and on YouTube, a YouTube channel. They are covering this case so well. Lauren is a journalist. Lori Hellis was, for many years, a defense attorney in that area. And John Mateus is Dr. John, Lauren's husband. And he's a criminal psychologist who actually does a lot of these evaluations. So he speaks to this. So I recommend, if you want deep dives, they have whole playlists on this. My other sources that always have spoken about the Pretty Lies and Alibis with Gigi and Fruit Loop. They're two friends in South Carolina. Love their podcast. So will you, especially if you like banter and the friendship talking. And they pretty much stick to what comes out in facts. Not a lot of allegations, not a lot of speculation. So like Hidden True Crime, pretty much you get the facts. Love them. For everything in Idaho, East Idaho news. I'm sure by now you've seen on TV or on YouTube Nate Eaton, Justin Lum, and Eric Grossart. Yes. Okay, that team has got all of this covered because it's in their backyard. It's in Idaho. Another really fun channel that covers things is Reporting Live from My Sofa with Paul. Love Paul, love his sofa, love his little bear that he puts on. He always says, you better put on your seatbelt for this one. Love him. And his little dog Roscoe, sidekick, love him. So hopefully you check out one of those channels to learn. They all have playlists. So you can learn more about this cult mom case. Oh, if you want to learn more about cults, go ahead and head over to Profiling Evil with Mike King. He is a cult expert. All right, so where the Lori Daybell, Chad Daybell case stands is the trial is not scheduled until 2023. It is a death penalty case, so everybody has to be protected, as we want everybody to be, because everybody's innocent until proven guilty. So it takes longer when there's more things going on, and when you have multiple crimes, multiple murders, multiple defendants, it's going to take a while. So that's where we are with the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell case. The second case I'd like to tell you what everybody's talking about this past couple of weeks is our old friend, as Linda from It's a Crime calls him, Bear. Barry Morphew is accused and currently getting ready to go to trial for the death of his wife, Suzanne Morphew, who went missing Mother's Day, May 2020. So this is moving kind of fast, or fast enough. This is in Colorado. As you will learn, a lot of stuff happens in Colorado. These type of cases, pretty common. these relationship cases where husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend involving, I don't want to set off you two's thing about what words we can say, but you know, probably have heard the word DV for what happens when relationships go awry. So this case has all the sort of dirty laundry details about that. The updates in the Barry Morphew case. This is my speculation, my opinion. He's got this really crack team, the 3 women out of Denver. Another channel which I like to watch all the time is Crime Talk with Scott Wright. He is also located in Denver. I think he might have some interactions with that team, and he really likes them. They are very clever, purportedly very expensive. I've been filing a lot. So right now, as it stands, he just won a number of motions that these pre-trial filings that they filed. He is allowed to, his bond was changed so that he can go to the next town over to visit his girls, so he can drive there, because otherwise they had to drive into the county, Chaffee County, where he has to reside. The trial is set for May 22, so we're going to hear a lot about Barry Morphew. 3 weeks ago, so that judge allowed him to travel. There was a change in judges due to some conflict with the first judge, and the second judge is Judge Ramsey Lama. The other former judge was Patrick Murphy. So now we have this new judge. Just to make sure there's no conflict of interest. Again, it protects the case. It makes sure that the defendant has, even if we, the viewing public, kind of goes, okay, who else would kill there really doesn't seem to be anybody else who would, just off your wife. But hey, guess what? Famous case in Ohio that turned into that movie about the doctor who was charged and he had to find the one-armed man. It can happen where there's an accident. So because of that, we have to give, and especially if you're going to take, very serious cases, we want to make sure everybody gets the presumption of innocence. So switching the judges was actually a good move. They also, speaking of making sure he has a fair case, his lawyers got the venue. They agreed to move it to the next county over, into Fremont County instead of Chaffee County, because everybody kind of knows everybody, very little town where this occurred. So this gives him a bigger pool, less people who may have already decided what to think. There was a document dump. An affidavit came out on just like a week or so ago. And I'm not sure why they said that they would release this evidence, but it is evidence of body cam footage and of emails that took place, and text between Suzanne, her friend, Suzanne Barry, the footage of Barry going in and dumping he made a bunch of runs, garbage runs in Broomfield on the day that Suzanne was reported missing, and it has been alleged that he was throwing away evidence. Those bags were never found. It remains an allegation, but this is a circumstantial case, and one has to think, why are you going to 6 different places 3 hours away from your home, even if you have a job there, to throw away garbage? That's just what the questioning is. So we have those pictures of so you can actually see him throwing away some of these garbage bags, and there's also the text messages, and it kind of gives all of us a feel for what was going on in that relationship, and circumstantially looks like there was a lot of trouble. So again, the prosecution is making the case, is alleging that the husband did this, and this is some of the evidence to show how the relationship was going. Very interesting. If you want to hear all of it read, Pretty Lies and Alibis, again, Gigi and Fruit Loop, their names are both Jennifer, so they gave themselves nicknames. They have I believe, a 7-segment playlist, reading these back and forth and talking about it as they go. It's very interesting. They tend to not go really long, so they're not really a podcast for insomniacs, but if you want to get little bits of information in 15 minutes, 25 minutes, that is where you want to go. And again, they're just reading the transcripts of all the evidence that was found. Because of their relationship, friendship, I really like Pretty Lies and Alibis as a source. Linda on It's a Crime. Linda is this fabulous YouTube creator out of somewhere in Canada. It might be British Columbia, but I am not sure. But she does a great job. She really does deep dives. She goes into the evidence. I believe she's even maybe interviewed some people involved, especially in cases where it is not getting any traction. So to give some more public exposure to it. Linda at It's a Crime. It's a YouTube channel. I don't know if she's a podcast as well, but it's a great resource. She's done a lot on the Morphew case, so please go there. There's another YouTube channel called Breaking Crime with Big E. This guy tends to it's just the evidence, and there's music behind it, and it's really good. He leaves it up long enough that you can actually really read it. So if you're into reading it for yourself and you don't like a lot of chitter chatter, which would mean I'm probably not going to see you as a subscriber. But if you really just like just the evidence, I would go to Breaking Crime to Big E. And again, along with the East Idaho news team, we have Lauren Scharf. I'm sorry, Lauren. She's a journalist with Fox News in Idaho, and or maybe she's out of Colorado. I'm sorry, this is Colorado. She also does she's near Idaho, sorry. Lauren is a great reporter, and she's done a lot on the Morphew case. She actually has gone and was sitting in and reporting on all of the current pre-trial hearings. So I would definitely go to her YouTube channel. She also has a talk with, and I'm sorry, I forget her friend's name, but they will talk after they've been at a hearing and sort of debrief with their community, their online community on their YouTube. She's really, I can't speak enough of her. So, Barry Morphew case. It is in Colorado. It is a circumstantial murder case. It's a no body, no crime case. And it is getting ready to go to trial in May. And it should be pretty interesting, especially with his great team of lawyers. And I don't know, it is a crazy case. If you're interested in true crime, which I assume you are, if you are listening to a true crime Grapevine podcast or YouTube channel, you probably heard over this past summer there was the Gabby Petito brine laundry case. And again, similar to the Morphew case, a relationship, obviously something went awry. Gabby was found in a national park out west. Brian had taken her van, the van they were traveling in, back to his home in Florida without her, without telling her parents. We're not sure what his parents knew. Went home, lawyered up. The whole family did. And it was very, it was very fast paced. We knew of a missing girl. Then there was the boyfriend found in Florida with his parents, but he wasn't talking. And then suddenly he was gone. And then they looked for him a month. And then they called off a search, a month-long search. It was the FBI, it was Florida police, state police, local police. It had the park that they were in, it was flooded. It was difficult to search because it was a swampy Florida park. I mean, huge, not just a regular park like what you might think of in the Midwest. I mean, it was like a reserve, a huge area. But very interestingly, the day after the search was called off, the parents walked in, found a dry bag, found evidence, and within half an hour, remains were found close to that. Coincidence? Okay, probably, maybe, I don't know. Seemed weird. To me, it seemed weird. A lot of us were watching this every day. So what happened this week was Brian Laundrie's, more of his autopsy came out. People on the Grapevine there's all kinds of conspiracy because of the weird way his parents acted, because of the timeline it kept changing as to when did he really leave home. Was he getting help? Was he on the run? People thought he saw him everywhere. We were looking on the Appalachian Trail because he had ties to that. He was a known outdoorsman. It was crazy. So if you were in true crime this summer, you might remember the story. If not, you can refer back to almost any true crime channel covered it. Icked Mel, his name's Mel, but he goes by Icked Mel. Hopefully you see somewhere around his icon to his YouTube. He is from Florida. He talked about it for hours almost every day. I mean, there was constant information coming in, and everybody wanted to discuss it. Icked Mel does great live YouTube broadcasts where he lets his callers call in. I mean, you hear you hear everything on the Grapevine on his YouTube channel. I would definitely check it out, especially if you're at home doing something, want to have it on in the background. But you get good information, and he is a great reporter. He's not an official reporter, but I mean, he does try to get the details right. I appreciate all his work. Of course, the Interview Room is a podcast, I believe also, but it's a YouTube channel by Chris McDonough, who is a retired detective from California, worked on children crimes specifically. He was very on top of this. He still helps with a lot. He does consulting work. A lot of the old law enforcement have channels that do consulting work, and he was following this and really looking into. We did not know where Brian Laundrie was. So the remains were found. People thought, is it him? Is it like, I'm not sure exactly how you could fake it being him. They said there were a partial skull was what they said was found at first, and he was identified through his teeth. Okay, and everybody's like, but did they pull his teeth? Could it not be him? It's weird that his parents just walked right in and found him after everybody else was looking for a month. But this week we did learn through the autopsy. So it was his DNA. The FBI said so. The bones, many of them were found. There was Amy Salerno did a podcast. Dr. Amy Salerno, who is also from Florida. She's a great YouTube reference person who's often called as a special guest. And yes, we can definitively, although we want, it's not a very good ending to think he just took the easy way out, got out of it. Speaking of the easy way out, the one weird thing about his autopsy was he is right-handed, but on the skull, the gunshot is on the left-hand side. So if you're right-handed, it seems hard. They found a revolver, like with a spinning place for the bullets. Like an old-fashioned sort of revolver. There was a gun shown in his room in pictures that everybody was pointing at. It was but it looked more like an automatic. This was not that. It's not clear where the gun came from, but there was a gun there. He was shot. It seems self-inflicted. Again, the handedness thing throws me off. I'm left-handed, so now I'm ambidextrous, and a lot of left-handed people are ambidextrous, but he was right-handed dominant. So, and the trajectory was apparently down. So it's not like this. It was like, I don't know. There are theories. conspiratorial theories. Allegedly. My sister had a very good one. I'll just share it with you. Allegedly, just my opinion, well, my sister's opinion. If, as Rose, Gabby's friend, said, Brian was hearing voices, that was one of the big things. And he was reading a lot of books about the character that was in Fight Club who was schizophrenic. Could he possibly have gone home, told his parents, was in a psychotic sort of state, maybe super paranoid? Would they want to put him out of his misery, to save him from what was going to happen, which was, they said the notebook that they found he took responsibility for Gabby. So I don't know why. My sister felt like when I said they weren't saying where he was, they lied about the timeline, or excuse me, their lawyer said they were mistaken. They were mistaken about the timeline, about when he left the house, which I'm not sure how you could be that, but I guess they were. He was found. They knew right where he was. He went in with camping. They did find, the report also said he was with camping gear that was not undone. Now, so all official sources and most LE YouTube things, yes, it was self-inflicted. That's all there is. Yes, it's strange, whatever. I don't know. Do you want to help your kid enough that you wouldn't want him to spend years in jail? Could you do that? I couldn't. I don't know. The whole thing is weird. That is why we can't stop talking about this case. The parents acted unlike any other that we have seen in the past. It just seems weird. That is my speculation and my opinion, the opinion of others as well, that the facts and what the official conclusion is, and they've closed this case, I believe, is that, he lost control, hurt Gabby, ran home, took the easy way out. And that is not that hard to believe. The handedness thing bothers me. But I don't know if we'll hear any more about it. So that could be case closed. If you want deep dives, though, on the Florida, Duty Ron, who is a retired law enforcement from New Jersey, he had on Barbara Butcher, who is a death investigator, doctor, pathologist, specifically looks at deaths. That they just talked about it. I would definitely recommend going to Duty Ron. Hidden True Crime, they talked a lot about the relationship problems because Dr. Mateus, again, psychologist, had a lot to say about it, and I would recommend those, especially if you're interested in the relationship things and maybe signs people can look for. It's elucidating. Profiling Evil, which is the Mike King, he had on Dr. Amy Salerno. That's who had on Dr. Amy Salerno. And Paul from Reporting Live from My Sofa has covered it. A lot of people covered this story, so you can find a lot of playlists. I definitely, though, do recommend Duty Ron's Profiling Evil and The Interview Room. The case, regardless of, it doesn't change the outcome. 2 lives were lost, and it was horrible. So I guess that case might be closed, but that's what happened recently with that. So I just thought it was interesting with the hand dominance. All right, another big case, the Delphi case you might have heard of. 2 little girls. Now this is unusual. We're all afraid of getting killed by a stranger, but that isn't really, of all of these cases, all except 2 or 3 are either by a spouse, a girlfriend, somebody they know, a friend, or a parent. It's people we know that are most likely to end us, which is shocking, and yet I believe it's kind of common that we know that. It's sad. But in the Delphi case, really strange. We don't know what happened. 2 little girls February, I believe it was either the day before, it was Valentine's Day. They went out walking in the woods together, 13 and 14. Libby German was 14 and Abby Williams was 13. Another time we hear a lot about cases is when there's an anniversary. So this was the Valentine's Day was the 5th year anniversary of the Delphi case. They were found hurt but dressed, and killed, and it was a stranger as far as anybody knew. Now, what happened new is the Indiana State Police Superintendent, Dave Carter, he was being interviewed by News Nation Now reporter, and he had, I'm going to have to put on my glasses, he had some really interesting things to say, and this is why it made news this week. So last month, they had found that there was a child herder person who was on the internet getting pictures, getting kids to send him pictures. His name was Keegan Klein, allegedly sending him pictures. He's been arrested for it, and he's now in jail for the cyber getting pictures thing with kids. He was using the name Anthony Schatz. That was his, he had a fake profile. They think maybe he lured them to meet them as another kid, but he was not a kid. That is the guess of all of us. He said this week to the reporter, "I'm pretty confident in the place where we all are right now, and eventually the world's going to know what we do." So, cryptic. Then he said later, "I'm confident that this will come to a conclusion eventually." And then lastly, he said, I think we're not going to singularly identify anyone right now, at least publicly. And again, one day we'll be able to tell you why we did that and who did it. So, and then when the reporter was about to ask him, he was asking about law enforcement, had previously spoke directly to who they assume, to the unknown subject, the Unsub, if you watch Criminal Minds. And he responded, "Oh, they're watching, and we'll meet them soon." So my source for this, Zav girl, whose real name is Tiffany. Hi, Zav girl. She's from Ohio. If you, again, want something to listen to if you have horrible insomnia, or if you're doing something that is mindless, like something around the house for a while, and you want to turn something on to listen, or you're just interested in true crime, Zab Girl channel, she is so careful about taking every different look into what's going on. And she takes some really deep dives. She has a sidekick, Bella, who has the best voice ever. Anyways, they really get into some of these crimes, and this is one of them. So I recommend you go there. And then the News Nation Now just had this great report. So that's what's going on with Delphi. We all assume it's been 5 years. Hopefully there will be, it sounds like there's going to be arrest soon. It seems like it might have something to do with this child predator person, but we're not sure. Again, that's what's on the grapevine about Delphi. So hopefully those families will get some resolution, and then we'll move into a trial phase. And that's in Indiana. Again, hopefully I have a map somewhere behind me. So we've been all around the states. Brian Laundrie case was in Florida, in case I wasn't clear about that. The next case, so the next case that everybody's talking about, so I have this sort of, as you can see, a couple cases bound together. Specifically, these are all, we have a rash of missing children, around 4 or 5. Most, like I'm talking about like 6 kids that nationally are being talked about right now. The most recent one, and I heard this on Ikadmel, and 10 to Life. 10 to Life with Annie Elise. She is a mom. She's younger, very pretty. She really is sensitive to anything having to do with children. So her cases, a lot of them are about missing kids. So she alerted me to this, as well as Ikidmel. Ikidmel's channel he's out of, as I mentioned before, he did a lot on the laundry case. He's from Florida, and he also, his channel is great. It's a great source for getting all kinds of information about cases that are minority victims. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, we don't hear about minority victims. Those cases, they're blips on the radar. They don't get traction for whatever reason. So Ikidmel does a great job of getting some of that traction. And this little boy happens to be African American. He's from Hampton, Virginia. Most of these cases, not all, of all the kids' cases, one, I think, is a true stranger abduction. Again, as I said before, tends to be people we know. And that's why they look at the family first. But with these little kids, I don't remember this being the case, but maybe it always has been. There's a strange lag in the, like, we find out about it, but then looking back, the child has been missing weeks, days, weeks, months, and in two of these cases, years. So it's hard not to look at the person who was supposed to be taking care of that child and look at them with a little bit of suspicion, allegedly, sort of speculatively going, kids don't, they're not like teenagers or young adults even who can walk off, maybe have cars, access to money. These are very little children. These are mostly, and it seems like 4 and 5-year-olds. There's another reason, maybe 4 and 5-year-olds, and I think that I don't really want to get into it because it has to do with SA. If you've been watching YouTube channels, you know that's an acronym for stuff that YouTube doesn't want to say out loud. And I don't really want to talk about it, but developmentally, a lot of people, if you think to yourself your first memories, a lot of memories happen, like full memories, happen after, when you're a little bit older, especially 7, 8, 9, when you have the language to put with memories, you tend to have fuller, more expansive, whole memories. And then memories of when you're very little tend to be flashbulb memories of something that was very emotional, very happy, very scary, very frightening. You were very mad. So if someone wanted to procure children for some nefarious reason, and you didn't want to worry about diapers and other, problems with like crying kids that you couldn't scare into being quiet, the age range of 4 to 5 would not be a bad one to pick. So is that what's going on? I don't know. It's very odd. That's a horrible thing to contemplate, but the demise of a child, I think, is a worse thing to contemplate. So here we are. So Cody Bixby is our latest. He actually was reported. So he was reported missing in I believe January 31st. But it was reported missing by his father. They think, though, now no one has seen him since November. There's not a lot about this. He's 4 years old. He's from Hampton, Virginia. Again, 10 to Life with Annalise has covered this case, and Mel with Ikidmel has covered this case if you'd like more information. If you do know anything about this, because this is the newest case, you can call the FBI to give them tips. They are involved in this case, or the Hampton, Virginia police. And we don't know a lot. There are the kids in the home. The father actually is in jail right now because as he was being spoken to, he divulged that the kids were sometimes at home alone, and that was considered endangering, so they arrested him on that. There's most recently problems with the case due to the fact that, looking back on the interview, he seemed to ask for a lawyer. and in a way that wasn't, I'm not sure, I can't speak to what happened, but the whole entire judicial system, like all the judges from that district, have asked to be recused from this case. Like nobody, they want it to be conflict free. So the most recent thing is that they asked to have the Supreme Court of Virginia, the Supreme Court justice then will assign a new judge to this outside of this district. So hopefully we hear more about what happened to Cody. They are still looking to him. Hopefully he can still be found alive. Right now what they're asking is if you've seen him, they're asking people to think back somewhere around November. It might have been the last time he was seen, late November. Oakley Carlson is another one of our little friends. She has been missing from Washington State, from Grace Harbor, Washington State. This is a really sad case. Now she is 5 years old. She was actually, so it's a strange case because she was with the foster family until I believe 2019. She was given back to her biological parents. The foster family was still very worried, not constantly, they did call repeatedly with concerns about the child. In November there was a fire on their farm, and apparently a friend put up a GoFundMe. In December the principal of the school went to bring some things to the family's house, looked around, saw the kids but not Oakley, wondered where is Oakley? And they said, oh, she's in a room with a timeout. Again, I think somehow they were family. Her kid knew the 6-year-old of that family was at this principal's house, and the child said, and she said something about Oakley, and she said, we're not allowed to talk about what happened to Oakley. So then the principal, this was early December, reported her missing, concerned. The parents were arrested, charged with endangerment 11 days ago. So she's been missing, so it was like 2 months before anybody reported her missing. And there's this weird fire. Apparently they live on 300 acres. So allegedly, conspiratorially, just my opinion, doesn't look wonderful. Oakley Carlson is 3 feet, 50 pounds, and has dark hair. Is she with somebody else? Again, horrible idea. I don't know. The fire aspect concerns me. Serenity McKinney. Now, you may have, again, 10 to Life, sorry. 10 to Life with Annie Elise alerted was the one talking about Oakley Carlson. Serenity McKinney. She's a little girl from Kentucky. Again, her grandparents reported her missing. Her mom fled with her boyfriend out of state. The last time anybody heard her was last summer, and before it was Christmas Eve of 2020, the last time anybody saw her. She would be 4. She is a blonde, white 4-year-old girl, 60 pounds. And she's missing from Shelby County, Kentucky. Shelby County, Kentucky. The one case that you may have heard a lot about was Harmony Montgomery. This is the case that so far has gotten all the attention, but unfortunately probably has the least likely outcome. Similar to Serenity, she's been missing for over 2 years. We're not sure. There's an interstate. She was with a foster family. I believe she was taken from her mom. They didn't know what to do. Somehow some judge who was getting ready to retire, I don't know, gave her to her father he had a horrible, that is my opinion and speculation, that it was a horrible background of crimes, violent crimes. And it's now unclear. Everybody's like, how'd he even get custody? He took her to New Hampshire. did not enroll her in school ever. She was 4 when he got custody and took her from Massachusetts to New Hampshire. Within months, didn't let her mom see her by, computer anymore, Zooming. The uncle saw her beat up with bruising. He admitted, that he bashed her about the house. The mother finally got somebody to listen by writing letters. She got clean, got sober, turned her life around, and started looking for her daughter, and couldn't even find where the father was living. They found him eventually living in a car, dating, or maybe married to a third woman, between the stepmom who he had married and gone and lived in New Hampshire with. They had split up. They had 3 kids. So there's 3 kids plus Harmony. So she thought, the stepmom said, he said the mom came and got her, which she did not. And they looked at the house. The house was horrible. The DCF was called there all the time. It's apparently, the cracks in New Hampshire are huge. There's not a lot of funding for child services, so it's a mess. So while there was lots of calls, they said, they have no heat in the house. The electricity wasn't turned on, but they were getting heat through a generator. Yes, it was messy, and then eventually those people left the house, and it was a mess. Now, when this all blew up about a month ago, they dug up the yard. No sign of anything, which is good. So all we know is that she was seen bruised. She would now be 7. She's blonde, and she has a distinct problem with one of her eyes. Again, just my speculation. Doesn't look good. So those are our missing child cases. Along with the last one, so Michael Vaughn is still missing. He's from Fruitland, Utah. He is it appears to be an actual abducted off the street. This happened I think it was June 27th of last summer. July 27th, from Fruitland, Utah. Michael Vaughn, he is a blonde-haired boy who was 5 years old at the time. There's no leads as far as we know. But I just wanted to make you aware that is still an active investigation. As well as, if you go to the source, the interview room with Chris Madonna, he has really been following the Summer Wells case, which was another 5-year-old blonde girl who was reported missing by her parents. They live in Tennessee. It is a very confusing case. If you'd like to learn more about it, please look at the playlist of the interview room. Chris Madonna has interviewed the mom, the dad. Now, law enforcement doesn't always like it when people interview people because it can interfere with the case. But Chris Madonna, he may be working with law enforcement. Maybe he's not, but he was law enforcement. He's really following through on this. So Summer is still missing as well. So she was reported maybe hours later at the most, if that was misreporting. It's unclear, but within a day. So those 2 cases are less likely than these other cases. You may have heard or may not have heard about the Gavin Stow case. He was an 11-year-old boy from Colorado Springs, Colorado, who was reported run away by his stepmother, which authorities allege that she was the person who hurt him and put his body was found in Florida later. This took place, let me give you the who, what, when, why, and how. This took place in 2020. 2020 was a bad year for crimes in Colorado, that's for sure. January 27th was when he was reported run away by his stepmother. His dad was out on a business trip. She was arrested by March. In March, he was found. She was arrested on March 2nd, and he was found. His body was found on March 18th in Pace, Florida. It's kind of a wackadoo story. She was arrested in South Carolina, came back midway through the trip, got her hands out of her the handcuffs, tried to escape, hit one of the people bringing her back to Colorado. She tried to escape from jail once. She has been assessed. So why she's in the news right now is this is her third assessment for her mental health. Her lawyers, so she's back at the Colorado State Mental Health Facility, and she's going to be evaluated. But now there's this voluminous file on her. They said they probably couldn't get to it super quick. So she was going to go on trial in the end of March for Gavin's death. Instead, it's probably going to have to be pushed back. The judge is Judge Gregory Warner. Her defense team said they wanted a bench trial. He's declining to make a decision on that until they find out about her mental health. They said that they would be able to evaluate her and finish it maybe by the end of February. Then the results would be written up by March 31st. So that's awful close. So the judge has set a pretrial hearing for March 17th, and he's hoping that April 4th they will be able to have opening statements. This has been a crazy case, and if you want a great source on that, It's a Crime. Again, It's a Crime. Linda has really been covering this case. So she has a playlist on Gavin, and you can know more about it. So that's what's new with the Gavin style case and the evil stepmom, allegedly evil stepmom, Letitia Stubb. Sorry, it's hard not to say she's not, but we'll give her the presumption of innocence because maybe there's an off chance. All right, so all of these cases tend to take forever, and it's very frustrating how the system, it says justice grinds slowly but finally. So in the more serious the case, the more time it takes, and it just seems like forever between when the crime happens, finally there's an arrest, and then it's like years and years and years until there's an actual trial. So in one case, there's a 10-year-old case. It took place way back in October 14th of 2012. A very pretty girl named Carrie Nichols was reported missing. She was 19 years old at the time. Well, just recently this week, remains were found. Now again, Colorado Springs, same place as the Stalker case. Something's in the water in Colorado. I don't know. Too much fresh air? Maybe. I don't know what's going on out there. But this girl did nothing wrong. She apparently, she went missing. The police did have phone records of calls made to Joel Haffendorfer, who was an older man. She was an aspiring model, according to People magazine, but to make the bills and having to live, she also ran ads as an escort. This Joel responded to that. Now, he claimed at the time, oh, no, we never met up. She just happened to call me and then disappear. Well, they went to his property in 2013, looked around. Cadaver dogs did hit in an area, but his mother said, oh, no, that's where I buried my horse. We bury horses out here. That's one of my horses, Milo. Okay, well, they also interviewed him. Again, didn't have enough to do anything. So this is 1 year, 2 years after the crime. So just recently, it was first reported as a tip by somebody who gave them evidence, but we didn't know who it was. So now it's been reported that it was his wife at the time. It might still be his wife, but her name's Christina Palmer. She said he told her one day in 2014, after his father had died, he said, I did kill this girl. I strangled her. I met her up with her, strangled her in my car, told my parents, and apparently they knew about this and helped. So, this is all alleged. This is all, but it is from law enforcement that she was the tip. We will find out more. This was from an affidavit, I believe. And so there will be a trial. So that is one of the cases that is, if you listen to the Interview Room or Profiling Evil, both of those are old law enforcement, Mike King or Chris Madonna, they will tell you that your likelihood of being a victim, they look at victimology, studying who can be a victim, and one of the things that can raise your chances of being a victim is, doing something risky or dangerous, like being an escort. But this was a stranger. This really wasn't. Most of these cases are, somebody who knew them. So again, we will find out more about. So this was a case that I would have filed as a cold case. I wouldn't even be bringing it up, except now it's there's going to be a trial. So we can never lose hope. We're about at the end of this first podcast, and I would like to always end on some good news. We have a case that was solved, and it's one of those kid cases. So 2 years ago in Western New York, Midwestern, Ithaca, near Ithaca, there was a little girl named Paisley Schultes, and she was 4. What had happened was her parents had lost custody, and as they were losing custody, like as it was happening, I guess, their other child was at home, had been taken away. I don't know. They got Paisley somehow and took her and took off with her. Now, the father told the police at the time, hey, the mom, she took off. She's in Pennsylvania. I don't know where she is. And he went home, I believe, to live with a relative. Maybe his father, maybe just somebody else he knew, closer to New York City, outside New York City, just north of there. The police were skeptical. They kept asking questions, but they didn't have enough. They weren't able to get a warrant to look at the whole house because it was just a guess. And you can't go into people's houses and look around on a guess. You have to have a reason. They got a reason. Earlier this week, they did go in, and as they were going throughout the house, an officer went into the basement and noticed that the basement stairs, it was like fit. It wasn't shaped like a basement stair. It just looked weird. And then he sort of moved a board, and then all of a sudden he could see like blankets and stuff, which should not be under the stairs, unless you're Harry Potter. And they found sort of a Harry Potter situation under the stairs. Then he saw a little foot. The mother, who was supposedly, in Pennsylvania, was hiding under the stairs with Paisley. They got everybody out. The little girl was unharmed. Now the thing is, though, it's been 2 years. She hasn't been to school in that whole time. Or outside, really. There was a big play yard that they showed. So maybe she and her mom went out in the dead of night. I don't know. Not a very normal experience. But she is healthy. She seemed fine. She saw McDonald's and remembered what it was and wanted to go. And the police nicely took her there. So, that's your happy story. 10 to Life with Annie Elise was the one. Again, she's mom. She tends to follow the little kid cases. And that's a happy ending, and we can close this case. Paisley has been found. So that is a positive. So, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode of the True Crime Grapevine with your dyslexic detective, me, Patti. And I plan to upload this podcast each week. This is going up on Tuesday, so I guess I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.